All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and our latest RBT practice exam series where we're going through the next set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out BT exam review for all our study materials. When you pass, please let us know so we can include you in our Sunday shout out. Other than that, let's work hard, study hard, get to our questions. Number one, a mom puts eggs and turkey in a bowl for her toddler. She puts the bowl on the high chair, says time to eat, and then guides the toddler's hand towards the bowl. She then repeats this several times. What type of prompting is this? Immediately, what type of prompting should you be considering? Well, physical prompting, right? If she's guiding the toddler's hand towards the bowl, she's doing some sort of physical prompting with the toddler's hand. Now, what's important here is it says she repeats it several times. So if you look at A and B, we have least to most and most to least. And without more information, we can't really decide if she's doing a least to most or a most to least because she's not changing the type of prompting she's using. She may have already used all the other prompts and went least to most. Maybe she's just starting to prompt and going most to least. That's why you need to read the questions carefully because the information matters. She's repeating it several times. She's not changing the prompt. We don't know if it's least to most or most to least. So it leaves us with a response prompt and a stimulus prompt. Well, we know a response prompt acts directly on the response, like a modeling prompt or a physical prompt. A stimulus prompt alters the prompt or the stimulus in some way. So if she had moved the bowl or made the bowl bigger, that's acting on the stimulus. That's a stimulus prompt. But she's acting directly on the response by moving the toddler's hand towards the bowl. So what type of prompting is she doing? Well, she's doing a response prompt. This is a really good prompting question. It really requires you to think and analyze everything about the question and then consider, okay, what answer choice fits best? The best answer is response prompt. 2. A woman asks her friend for advice on handling her son's behavior. Her son has started to color on all of the walls. The woman's friend tells her to use negative reinforcement whenever she sees the son drawing on the walls. What is wrong with this statement? Okay, got to put your analyst cap on here, your technician cap, and you've got to think about what are they talking about, these two women, in terms of behavior analysis. And you have to remember that on the exam. Everything has to be framed in behavior analytic concepts. So what is wrong with this statement? We have a woman asking her friend for advice handling her son's behavior because he's coloring on the walls. The woman's friend tells her to use negative reinforcement whenever she sees the son drawing on the walls. What's the issue here? Why is it wrong, or is it wrong to use negative reinforcement to handle this situation? A, the woman will be using positive reinforcement, not negative reinforcement. Would she want to use any reinforcement for this behavior? Well, no, right? She doesn't want the sun to color on the walls. She needs to decrease that. She's asking advice on handling this behavior. Reinforcement does what? It increases. So she's not going to want to use this type of reinforcement. So she's not using positive or negative reinforcement. B, negative reinforcement does not decrease behavior. That is true, right? Negative reinforcement doesn't decrease behavior. Now, in a lot of uses, people use negative reinforcement incorrectly when they mean what? They mean punishment. Punishment decreases behavior. So the issue here is that negative reinforcement is not going to decrease the behavior. What about C? Only punishment can be used to decrease behavior. Well, slow down. Think about it. What else can we use to decrease behavior? What about extinction? Yeah, so punishment is not the only thing that can decrease behavior. And then finally, nothing is wrong with this statement. Well, if the friend is telling the woman to use negative reinforcement when she sees the sun drawing on the walls, all that's going to occur is the sun is going to continue drawing on the walls because that's what reinforcement does. Remember, reinforcement increases, punishment decreases. Positive and negative just tell us whether something was added or taken away. So what is wrong with this statement? Well, B, negative reinforcement does not decrease behavior. 3, a drill sergeant tells his troops to get in a single file line. They salute the sergeant and line up. The drill sergeant then says, drop and give me 20. The troops drop to the ground and do 20 push-ups. What is the SD for saluting the sergeant? Okay, behavioral question. When you get our behavioral questions, we need to, one, identify what behavior we're looking at. And then we have to identify that behavior in the context of the question, because there's a lot of different things happening here. So we're looking for the SD for saluting the sergeant. So let's find that, right? So they salute the sergeant. Here is our behavior. We're looking for the SD. Now, the SD is the antecedent. It is the instruction, the command, right? It comes right before the response. And the response is saluting the sergeant. So right before they salute the sergeant, what happens? Well, the drill sergeant tells the troops to get in a single file line. SD, they salute the sergeant, right? And then they line up, then they continue, okay? We're not worried about all this other stuff. We're only worried about saluting the sergeant and the SD. So the SD is this. A drill sergeant tells his troops to get in a single file line. A, lining up. Well, lining up occurs after they salute the sergeant, so it can't be the SD. B, the drill sergeant telling them to get in a single file line. Yes, that's what we predicted. If you want to challenge yourself and really get good at this, start predicting the answers before you see the answer choices. So read the question, cover up the answers, and predict. C, the drill sergeant telling them to drop and give him 20. Well, that comes way after saluting them, right? So it can't be the antecedent or the SD. And then doing 20 push-ups. That's our last thing. Again, SDs are antecedents. It has to come, the SD has to come before the response, right? The SD is going to evoke that response. So what comes right before? What evokes it? Well, the drill sergeant tells his troops to get in a single file line. What is the SD for saluting the sergeant? Well, the drill sergeant telling them to get in a single file line. The trick to these applied behavior questions is really identifying what are we looking at. And here, we're looking at saluting sergeant. 4. Kim wants her daughter to be more polite. Whenever they are in public, Kim lets her daughter order for herself and will tell her daughter, what do we say? To which the daughter responds, please. What type of teaching is this? Now, as a technician, you need to know 2 major forms of teaching. You must know naturalistic and you must know discrete trial. Those are kind of the 2 umbrellas where everything else we do lives, right? Discrete trial is very planned, very contrived, very controlled. Naturalistic relies on the situations that occur in our environment to teach. So when you're deciding between DTT and naturalistic, you have to ask yourself, what is occurring prior to the teaching, right? In this case, they're in public. Kim's letting her daughter order for herself. Once she orders, then she says, what do we say? So Kim is using these naturally occurring situations of, right, ordering for herself, right, to teach. So is she using A, incidental teaching? Now you have to ask yourself, is incidental teaching and naturalistic teaching the same thing? Yes, it is. Incidental teaching and naturalistic teaching are one and the same, okay? Incidental teaching just means you're using these incidents in public to teach. What about discrete trial teaching? Well, discrete trial teaching involves rapid delivery of trials and feedback. That's not what's happening here. Just whenever her daughter orders for herself, Kim prompts her and teaches her to say, please. C, naturalistic teaching. Well, we already determined incidental and naturalistic are the same thing. So we look at D, both A and C. That's what we're looking for. What type of teaching is this? Incidental and naturalistic. Our answer here is both A and C. 5, after watching the movie The Social Network, you find the music from the movie on Spotify and listen to it for 2 weeks straight. After those 2 weeks, you do not listen to the album again. What most likely happened? Let's be careful here. Remember, we're only using the information given to us. All we know is you watched the movie, you found the music, you listened for 2 weeks straight, and then you stopped. That's what we know. So what happened? A, you were punished for listening to the music. Is there any indication other than you stopped listening to the album that you were punished for listening to the music? No, there's no indication whatsoever. Okay. So A, if there's not a better answer, would be our answer because you did stop. But let's see if we can find something better. B, you were deprived. What does deprive mean? What does deprivation mean? Well, deprivation means you're not getting enough. Well, if you listen for 2 weeks straight, you were actually what? You probably got satiated. Satiation is the opposite of deprivation. Deprivation means you're not getting enough. Satiation means you've had too much. So if you've listened 2 weeks straight, you're most likely satiated. Think about anything that happens in your life when you do something too much, right? If you go party for 3 days, usually you don't want to party for a while. If you eat a lot of bad food out on vacation for a week straight, usually you're trying to stop eating so much bad food for a while after that. If you listen to the same album for 2 weeks straight, you might become satiated and you don't listen again. Most likely, you've gotten too much of the album. You became satiated. It's better than punished because there's no indication you're punished, right? We don't have any information about punishment. We do have a lot of signs about satiation, though. And then D, you were reinforced for listening to the music. Clearly not, because your behavior stopped, right? So what happened was you were satiated on the music based on the information given to us. If a behavior analyst asked you to describe the elopement behavior, running away, which of the following choices would be the best description? So you need to describe running away to your analyst. And when you describe behavior, what do we need to be? We need to be complete and objective, concise, and then throw in some measurement if you can, right? How many times did it happen? As much information, objective information, as you can. So A, the client ran from his chair as soon as the work was given to him. Okay, isn't bad, right? We know what the antecedent was. Work was given, client ran from his chair. Not bad, right? Can we do better? B, the client stood up from his chair and attempted to open the door twice yesterday when given work. Okay, much better, right? We've got a client standing up from his chair and then going attempt to open the door twice yesterday when given work. So this is a more detailed description than A. This just says ran from his chair. This says, well, he stood up and then attempted to open the door twice with measurement. So B is just much more complete, right? See, every time the client is given work, he stands up from his chair. Okay, so at least we have a measurement, but it's very similar to A. Still not very detailed, right? He's just standing up. Again, in B, we get this picture, right? He's given work. He gets up from his chair. He attempts to open the door, and it happened twice yesterday. It's really painting that picture. And then D, whenever the client becomes frustrated, he will stand up from his chair, run to the door, and attempt to open it. This one's actually pretty good, except for what? Well, you can't use frustrated as why the behavior occurred, right? We don't use emotions to describe why behavior happens. So that immediately eliminates D, even though the rest of it's good, right? If D had said, whenever the client is given work, he stands up from his chair, runs to the door, and attempts to open it, that's a very good description. But we can't say, well, they become frustrated, so they do this, right? That's a big no-no. So the best description here is going to be B. Client stood up from his chair and attempted to open the door twice yesterday when given work. We have an antecedent, we have a measurement, and we have a detailed look at what is actually occurring. 7, the longer the intervals, the more likely that what will occur if you are using whole interval recording. All right, this is a more difficult question, so let's analyze it and think about it. We're talking whole interval recording here, which is what? That's when the behavior has to occur the entire interval for it to count. We have a 10-second interval, the behavior has to happen 10 seconds. So if we increase those intervals, the longer they get, what's going to happen? Let's say instead of a 10-second interval, we have a 2-minute interval. Now what needs to happen? That behavior has to occur for a full 2 minutes for it to count as one response. What might happen there? A, produce more accurate results. Well, there's just no way, right? Because if we have a 20-second interval compared to a 2-minute interval, that's going to give us a lot more data, and it's going to give us a much more likely chance of capturing the behavior than a behavior that has to happen for 2 minutes straight. Think how long that is, right? B, overestimate the behavior. Now, will this overestimate or underestimate? Well, if my interval is 2 minutes long and the behavior is occurring for a minute and a half, how many responses am I recording? Well, 0. We are drastically underestimating how often that behavior is occurring. That's why when we use interval recording, Typically, we like shorter intervals. They're more sensitive, and typically they're more accurate. So what's going to happen, most likely, the longer you make this interval with whole interval recording, is you're typically going to underestimate the occurrence of behavior. If you wanted to calculate how many times a day you look at your phone, what will be the best measurement to use? Okay. Measurement question. We want to calculate how many times a day you look at your phone. So how many signals what to you? Well, that's just signal frequency, just a count, right? I use my phone 10 times. But we want to find how many times a day you look at your phone. So now we have a time component. So when we have a frequency and a time component, what is that called? A, just frequency. Well, we know we have a frequency component, but we also have this time component as well. So we need something a little more accurate. What about rate? Well, there we go, right? I would look at my phone 10 times per day. That is our rate. Okay, that's the difference between frequency and rate. Frequency is a count. Rate is count with a time component. Duration is simply just a time component. So how long do you look at your phone? That would be duration, not how many. And then whole interval. Well, if we're going a full day, we're not going to use whole interval because whole interval is just a sample. So if you wanted to calculate how many times a day you look at your phone, you would use rate, count over time. How many a day? 11 times per day. And then finally, 9, somebody spills their drink on you at the bar. As it relates to your behavior, this is considered what? Okay, this is a good teaching question. First, what is our rule for behavior questions? Whose behavior are we looking at? We're looking at your behavior. So somebody spills their drink on you. You didn't spill the drink. Somebody spilled their drink on you. Now, what is our rule? We have to adhere to what we call the dead man's test, right? If a dead man could do it, it's not behavior. Have you done anything in this question? No, somebody spilled their drink on you. You didn't do anything. We don't know how you responded. We don't know what happened before. All we know is someone spilled their drink on you. Did you engage in any behavior? You did not. This is a very good teaching question. Okay. Understand what we're saying here. We're looking at your behavior. You didn't do anything. Okay. Somebody spilled their drink on you. You weren't doing anything. You haven't done anything. Okay. Behavior is when an organism does something, when they interact with the environment. You haven't done anything here. So as it relates to your behavior, there is no behavior. Great. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let us know when you pass so we can include you in our Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.